Wrestling Inside Now. This is the Viewpoint. This is part 2. If you've not watched the first one, go there and watch that one. That was the unedited version of the Viewpoint. We did not do any editing in it. We were going to, but as usual, I just put it up unedited. So if anything was said during that and you got mad about it, blame Rodney. Don't. Jack said anything, blame Rodney. He made us do it.
I don't touch the buttons.
All right, folks, we're going to talk about the Viewpoint. Rodney, I'm going to start with you. What is your viewpoint on professional wrestling? Either it can be years ago, or it can be something you're watching now. We'll turn it over to you now. I give you the viewpoint.
Don't go up by myself now. Don't do that, because Charles wants to see apparently Becky Lynch on here, which just watching her wrestle is enough to make anybody turn anything off. But anyway, I wonder how she got her position. That's a good question. But anyway, about Viewpoint it has to do with today and yesterday. For whatever reason, this thing about being beat is just a totally absurd idea that some wrestlers and people have. The idea that somehow losing a match to anybody is damaging to your career. It is absolutely not. I remember when Dad was talking about a great man by Lynn Rossi, who was actually one of the great bookers of our time. When he would see a new wrestler come into town, he thinks, I can draw money with that guy. And he would go and put him over in the middle of the ring. So, and it set up for later on to have those big houses. Because, like I said, losing means absolutely nothing. And in the hindsight, you think about it. Terry Funk lost the World Heavyweight Championship, and after that, he was a bigger star than he was a world champion. You think about it, all the great rivalries that we've talked about, Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler, do we really discuss who really won? No, we talk about how great the matches are. Wrestling 2 and Superstar. Wrestling 2 was the Georgia Heavyweight Champion. He lost the title to the Superstar, so losing didn't mean anything. It just made it bigger when they had when they get the rivalries continue on. Whether it's Ole and Gene against Wrestling 1 and 2, or Dusty and Ole, or even Dick Murdoch and Humongous. And it's another story where Dick Murdoch saw Lord Humongous in Mid-South and said, I want to work with that guy. He's the one that pretty much put stuff together that first time. He knew that getting him over meant the ticket to the main event. And that's exactly why he did it. Some people, like I said, this idea of, oh, I lost a match. It's the end of my career. Oh, it'll make me look bad. For now, what really makes you look bad is that when in my opinion, is when wrestlers got out there and cried about losing or got out there and quit. Tommy Rich did it, for example, in Georgia, and just totally destroyed his, as far as I'm concerned, credibility. Wrestling 2 kind of did it, and it harmed him as well when he retired after losing to Mr. Saito. Quitting is what the main thing is if you really want to kill yourself off, but to merely lose a match means absolutely nothing. And that is my viewpoint.
And I will agree with you on that one, on that viewpoint. Jack, do you agree with him on that viewpoint?
100%. I'd give him 110 if he were a woman.
All right, Jack, your viewpoint right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
My viewpoint concerns tag team wrestling, or, as I should say, the lack thereof in modern day sports entertainment / pro wrestling / whatever we're calling it today. FTR, probably one of the greatest tag teams I have seen in forever. The only real tag team that is in AEW, because they understand the psychology of what they're doing. They know when to do it, why to do it. And even though they're the bad guys, they follow the tag team rules. That's so hard to find. WWE, the closest they have to a real great tag team is the Usos. But I almost equate them to all the other guys, AEW, everybody else, where it's just a battle of, who can say the S word enough times in promos and how many times you can super kick and still not slap in conjunction with those moves that you're doing. Tag team wrestling desperately needs to make a comeback. I have missed tag team wrestling. We have not had real tag team wrestling in 20 years, ever since Vince McMahon became the overriding force in our industry. And he's not a tag team wrestling fan. He's not a wrestling fan, but he certainly never cared much for tag teams. Mm-hmm. And I don't like, I never have. Sure, they got them out there. Yeah, you got tag team, 6-man, 8-man, or like AEW, you got everybody in the locker room in the ring at the same time, tagging in and out, kind of. But it's not the same as the way it was done back in the day, where that was your main event. And it was hard to follow tag team matches because the stories were told. People knew what they were trying to get across in there. Even the worst, Ole and Anderson and whoever he was tagging with, even their worst match was still better than anything today. I miss tag team wrestling.
I agree. No tag teams. They wrestle as single matches. Each guy
had to get their own spots in.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Now, I was going to say something else, but since we're talking about tag team wrestling, I'm going to make a viewpoint on that as well. Here is the problem that I see with these things. What is this deal about these guys today of doing these cold tags? No reason for it, no rhyme for it. No, they just run over there coldly after they've been beat up a few times and did a move and just go over there and tag the guy so the next guy can come in and do his spots. Why in the world is that all about, folks?
It's just complete lack of understanding what we're doing out there.
You know, I have seen this, and AEW and WWE is just as bad. Each week when you watch their program, so here's my viewpoint. Each week when they watch the television program, when you watch the television program, it's like watching the same exact show week in and week out. They do the same formula, same show, same stuff. It's going to be somebody's going to run in, somebody's going to do an interview, somebody's going to come out. Can they not watch a program? You know, Lost was a great television program. Get some ideas from it, for goodness sakes. You know, do what Dad used to do. Our father, Ron West. Go watch Benny Gonzalez. He'll get some finishes and something new from it. You know, maybe watch something else but wrestling. Maybe you'll get some type of something out of that, because people say, well, it's not wrestling. Well, it's not good television as well. I see better things on television. Sometimes Adam the Woo has a better thing on YouTube. So it just to me, quit doing the same thing. Sit down and come up with something that is unique and different, and don't do the same thing week in and week out, because it's like watching the same show. And then they wonder why the ratings are falling. This ratings is not because the product is horrible. It's because they just saw it the week before. So why watch it again? That's my viewpoint. What do y'all think?
I totally agree. It's like soap operas. The reason soap operas are dying out is because you could miss Monday through Thursday. As long as you tune in on Friday and Mondays, actually, you catch everything that happened. So why is there any reason to watch everything in between? There's not.
No.
So and with wrestling, you got to change it. You got to make stuff different. You got to tell. Here's a novel idea. Let's tell a story.
Yes. This is what I don't understand with CM Punk. Absolutely no story for him to come in there and wrestle. He was already over. They knew he was going to be over. They knew he was going to be over when he got there. They should have built a heat. They should have been a heat on a tag team and a manager, and built that heat for 12 weeks. And finally, Matt Hardy or somebody needed a partner, and they went to wherever he lives and says, man, I need you to come back here. You know how to be nasty. You know how to be dirty. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get back into wrestling. Nah, I said I wasn't going back in wrestling, and build that up for 3 or 4 weeks. And finally he says, okay, I'm coming back at pay-per-view. Put them over big time, and then let that tag team just beat the living crap out of them and leave them laying, because he came back and did that. Build it up. Do something. For goodness sakes, do something different. Tell a story. Just mindless spots in wrestling is just not going to get you the ratings. They're going to continue falling because it's the same thing. It's the same. Yeah, I watch the shows, and it's the same matches week in and week out, week in and week out. All right. that was our viewpoint. We could go on and on.
Well, you said that they need to watch something else other than wrestling. What they need to do is quit watching their own stuff and watch other wrestling from prior. Because I assure you, not one of those wrestlers, writers, have watched wrestling from Mid-South, 1984 especially. They have not watched, even 1985, have not watched the Continental shows. They have not watched the Georgia Championship Wrestling shows. They think that is old school, that has no worth. But what they do is they take stuff that they've seen before on the show. I don't think there's been anything original that they've done in a long time. No. Last week with Big E, last night's show with Big E and Drew McIntyre, I would say that Ray Charles could see that coming. I mean, it's the same thing. They're wrestling in the main event at the next pay-per-view or the next whatever big show they're doing for the WWE Championship. Same exact thing that they've been doing before. And you're right, it's repetitive over and over again. And again, the women are taking over. Really.
It doesn't have to be repetitive. All I'm trying to say is watch Star Wars, for goodness sakes. It may give you an idea of how
then you would have to go to good versus evil, and they can't do that.
Well, to me, this has always been WWE's. Yeah, WWE's issue is Vince wanted writers for his wrestling program, but he didn't want them to be associated with the wrestling business. He hired writers from Hollywood that have sitcom experience. Okay. I get that he's trying to look outside the box. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But what he should be doing is getting people who are versed inside the business, that knows how the business works, and tell them, hey, watch stuff from Hollywood. Get your ideas from there, conform change those ideas and make them fit into what we do. Because right now, those writers, from my understanding, is 98% of the stuff they come up with, he just shoots down anyway. Because he understands, what would work in wrestling and what doesn't. But they're just spinning their wheels. So after a while, they have learned the formula is keep feeding him the same stuff and he'll quit yelling at me.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're exactly right, because that's the reason the show's the same every week.
Here's one thing too that I have found. We talk about the territories going out of business. It was because of the ability not to change. The problem with Vince McMahon and the WWE now is the ability not to change, and it put the territories out of business. The only thing keeping WWE in business is the big money contracts from Peacock and from those companies. What would happen if they didn't have those? They'd be out of business.
Well, when Vince came back, when he was taking over the industry, it wasn't just a matter of taking over. It was because, like we said many times, territories were shooting themselves in the foot. He was just there picking up the pieces. But still, the people that were actually coming up with the ideas were the Pat Pattersons and guys like that, Jay Strongbow, all those guys who understood the business, but were given the freedom to, hey, this is how we've always done it, but now let's broaden our horizons. Yep. What else can we try that hasn't been done before? And that's where they excel. That's where they're at. But now they're so, I don't think they're focused at all. I think that's a big issue.
It's a narrow. They have a narrow thing they're looking down. They're not looking outside the box of something different they can do. That's what happened to the territories, and that's why his ratings are so bad. He's went from 4 to 5 million to 1 million to 2 million, and it's so sad in professional wrestling. So,
now, all right, let's as far as the tag team thing goes, that is a disaster. That is a sad state of affairs, and it just comes down to it that Vince at one time did push tag teams. He had the Valiants at one time, but for whatever reason, he just once he took over, like Jack said, it was over for tag team wrestling. Because when we were growing up, tag teams were the main event in most cases.
Yeah,
Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff, Ole and Gene, and they were awesome. But now we have to have tag teams with stupid names. Okay, you've got the comedy routines, Mitz and whatever Morrison. They were just nothing but a comedy team. You had the other guys. You got Dolph and Root, another comedy team. You've got New Day, another comedy team. All of these are the Abbott and Costello of professional.
But the Usos are also a comedy team.
Yes, they are a comedy. They are stooges, basically. So that's the point. Tag team with the Midnight Express, which we talked about in the great moments of wrestling, with the thing with the chair with the Fantastics, that probably could be done today, but you can't do it while you have the comedy routine out there, and it just don't. The drama and the comedy don't go together. It shouldn't go together.
Yeah, and AEW, like I say, they have FTR. I think that's one of those guys would have stood head and shoulders with any tag team back in the day. They are fantastic. But how over can they be, when their opponents are a guy dressed up like a dinosaur?
Yeah.
And another guy as big as one of their legs.
Sure.
And nothing against those guys. I mean, there's a place for guys like that, but not in tag team wrestling.
The only thing that I find interesting in tag team right now is Randy Orton Jr. and Riddler and the Riddle.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I find any interest in tag team whatsoever. But that is only temporary. That whole thing is only temporary. And then eventually the Riddler is going to turn on Randy Orton. And we can see that coming 10 miles off.
All right. Let's see what the insiders have got to say, and then we will get off of here, because we could talk about this for hours upon hours upon hours. And but we won't, and we could actually break down some booking ideas that they could probably use. Hello, insiders from Rick Brooks. Richard Hood is checking in. Richard Hood also said, "I don't think Terry wanted to hold the belt long." No, I don't think he did. I don't think Terry did want to hold the belt. By the way, we're talking about the World Heavyweight Championship. Terry Funk held the World Heavyweight NWA. The '80s were the era of the tag teams. Yes. Robert Grice, hello. Do you think the writers don't know how to tell a story beyond one night? I think so. I don't think they do know how to tell a story past one night. Have you seen a long-term storyline at WWE? Have you seen something that we got week 1, week 2, week 3?
No. I have seen 1 week, 2 week, maybe 3 week, and then drop it for 6 weeks, and then come back and try to pick it up again. That's what I've seen.
I think right now, I'm not sure what's going on with Bobby Lashley, but to me, he is the man right now. I like the way he dressed. I like the way he conducts himself. He just seems to me head and shoulders above all the rest that's there.
And the sad thing is that, we all remember a time whenever WrestleMania hit, they already knew where they were going for the next WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And now it's like they don't know what they're going to do Friday. It's just confusing.
Yeah, that's never going to work. Richard Hood, Rodney, the writers don't like wrestling. That's one of the problems. I don't know if they don't like wrestling. I don't know if they know what it is.
You're exactly right. They don't.
Yeah, wrestling is not like anything else. And I don't care how much Vince tries to say that it's entertainment. It's still something totally unique. There's so many detailed things. I mean, you're not going to go make a major motion picture unless you absolutely know what you're doing. And yet, here we are with the biggest wrestling organization in the world, hiring people to run this thing, more or less, that have no clue. Yeah. And it's not their fault. I don't blame them for taking a paycheck.
No, I don't either. Robert Grice said that it's like they want a wrestling drama. I don't even know whether they wanted a comedy, a wrestling comedy.
Yeah, I'd be fine with the drama part. Right. It's the comedy part that they're not. It's not even funny.
No. Robert's right though. This is a television show with a wrestling as its background.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's kind of like
maybe the Heels that's on Netflix. Basically, that type of deal. That wrestling is the catalyst, but the story is something else.
Yes. Exactly what it is. Robert is exactly right.
I had heard years ago that that's what Vince wanted. He wanted just character development, vignettes, things like that, and that to actually see a wrestling match, you had to buy the pay-per-view.
Well, the problem is even that stuff they're doing is horrible. Even if you do it, even if it was, if the wrestling, you just take the wrestling out of it. It's still horrible writing, regardless of what you want. I mean, it's just horrible writing.
SmackDown is a 2-hour show, and they spent 30 minutes, not all at the same time, but basically 30 minutes with Edge doing his spiel and what's the other guy?
Seth Rollins, yes.
Seth Rollins doing his stuff. So, it's just, I mean, that's, a quarter of your show is devoted to 2 guys and no matches.
And that would be fine if it was even entertaining. It would be fun, but because they did that. I remember when Jerry Lawler was going against Bill Dundee, loser leave town match. They did devote the whole show to Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler, but it was built and they showed things and they built it.
Look at the steps. There's several Georgia Championship Wrestling. Look at the steps that they took. They went back from the beginning of this, and they chronicled it all with both wrestlers talking about their position on all of it. Wrestling 2 went through everything that happened between he and the superstar, and then he did again with Austin Idol, or Austin Idol went through everything, and Gordon told that story and put it all together for the match coming up, and it made me even now, when I re-see that, I want to see that match again. It's just great stuff. And the idea of why can't they go and examine the matches again? You know what I'm saying? Why can't they go and sit and say, okay, this is what happened last week. Let's go back over what exactly here in this part of the match, what happened here, and try to get them to expand what was going on. Were you hurt here? Blah, blah, blah. But they don't do any of that anymore at all. And that was a big part of when we were growing up. Of course, that is the difference between going and presenting it as a sports program than it was billing a comedy program.
Worst thing they ever did was take the sport out of wrestling, and that's the worst thing they ever did. Nothing is bad as bad wrestling. I will agree. Right. And I've seen a lot of that. Still to this day, though, WWE is the king of the entertainment. No one's going to beat them. And with all these other wrestling organizations, as Jack has said, will learn they're never beating the WWE and produce their own shows. And for goodness sakes, this is going to be a viewpoint. Tony Khan, quit even talking about WWE. All you do is make people turn it over to watch the WWE. Because if you're worrying about them, you care about them. Did you hear Vince ever call your name out? No. What do y'all think about that? And then we'll go.
Oh, I totally agree. We need to go back that. They will even my dog mad about it. But they will poke fun at, like Edge, when they were talking about Seth Rollins breaking in his house, and he was calling a couple of buddies. The buddies that he referenced by name are the real names of FTR, who's the tag team, and AEW. So they take subtle hits, but they will never say AEW. No. They'll never say that.
No, because they don't even. And in time, I'm sorry, WWE's been around for 70 years. When you take WWF and before that Capital Sports, you're not going to beat.
From Jess McMahon to Vince Jr. Yeah. They know what they're doing. We may not like it all the time, but
they do know what they're doing. So quit worrying about them and produce a different show. And you may be able to pick up wrestling fans that hadn't watched wrestling in years. If you enjoyed this video, give us the big thumbs up. Subscribe to the page. Go one step further, hit that notification bell. And watch the video, the first video, our other viewpoints right here. We're going to do that on occasion. We don't try to do that too much because we don't want our blood pressure going up very high. We'll see you in the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.